is that there have been more and more and more people who end up purchasing a firearm because we have fewer and fewer and fewer cops while crime surges because of someone like Tammy Morales. The person who is selling the most firearms is that person who wants to take those firearms away. Democrats. Tammy Morales sells guns. Jay Inslee, Bob Ferguson, they sell guns. And I understand perfectly why people purchase firearms and conceal carry. Many people do, due to crime. I know because I'm one of them. I don't want to be caught in a position where I can't defend myself. And so while she's busy pretending that simply saying, well, cops can't be everywhere at all times, which is a disingenuous way to have this conversation because no one said that cops will be everywhere at all times, but we do certainly acknowledge that the more cops you have, the more proactive policing you have, the smaller the chances, the lesser the chances of this culture of lawlessness continuing to not just develop, but spread. But people like Tammy Morales and others, particularly in Seattle, they don't want to acknowledge that we have a problem. Seriously, she didn't even say we have a crime problem. She just said we have too many guns on the streets. What does that mean? Because the truth is, if we had a zero murder rate, right? If it was quite literally zero, let's live in that world for a moment, and guns still existed, Tammy Morales would say the exact same thing. She would still hold that position. We got to get these guns off the streets because we want to maintain that zero death rate. That's what she would do. They don't want to acknowledge any of the problems because they know they're responsible. They know they're responsible. And the funny thing is, on the gang issue, yesterday I reached out to the mayor's office and I reached out to SPD, who are almost always great at getting back to me. SPD, not the mayor's office. Mayor's office never responds. And I simply asked this question. And it's seriously not even a trick question. The way I framed it, I went out of my way to make sure it wasn't perceived as a trick question. I mean, it is a little bit of a trick question, but you know what I'm saying. I simply said, do you believe that gangs are responsible for any aspect of the current violence we're seeing on our streets? I didn't say, is it the only? I didn't say it's the main. I just said, is it at all a part of it? No response, which is rather telling. It is not in any way, shape, or form controversial to point out that we have a gang problem. Not even a little bit. Unless, of course, you think the term is racist. Unless, of course, your goal is to focus on guns. You are anti-gun to a fault. That's all you think about. The only other obsession that's unhinged that you have is with Donald Trump. You hate guns on the left, you hate Trump on the left, the far left. And they don't want to divert any of the focus from their anti-gun efforts, even when they're sort of just phoning it in, which is basically what the response has been to the shooting, in large part because they all know that it's gang-related and they don't really want to make a big deal out of that. Mayor Harrell, however, wants to get rid of the state preemption law, which prevents cities from creating their own gun policies. The reason why they do that at the state level, and I believe almost every state has a preemption law on guns, is let's say you live in Tukwila. No, I don't want to do that to anybody. Let's say, I'm kidding, let's say you live in Auburn. Well, okay, I'll stick with Auburn. And you work in Bellevue. So there's quite a few cities between there. Now, let's say on the way in, Auburn has the one gun law. You're passing through Renton, which has a completely different gun law. You're now violating that law simply by driving through with your gun, even though maybe in Bellevue and Auburn, they have the exact same gun laws.